Well, let's take a look at the actual text here. This is from your handout. We're going to be looking at the text. A couple of things to focus in on. As I said in the last slide, this is largely material that covers the history of the universe prior to humans. Humans entered the scene, but kind of late. So we're going to take a look at some of the key pieces in here that are stitched together. And remember, these aren't necessarily connected. Sometimes the same characters or gods or goddesses will sort of be in several different stories. We're not really sure about the sequence, although there's a suggestion that there is some sort of overall sequence and such. And it's also not really clear that some of these gods are terribly powerful gods. They seem to maybe have been just spirits or something that predates the human experience. But we're going to take a look first at the creation story, and this is on the handouts, page 3079. One of the important things to remember is how this involves ritual, how it involves recitation, how it involves acting out or drama. We think that maybe at that top photo at the top of this particular slide is sort of similar to what was going on. That people may have acted these stories out in costumes and in groups, maybe even like they do in South America now. Whole neighborhoods or groups of people would be in charge of one particular story, and they might have taken great community pride in having delivered the story in a particularly vivid and exciting way. We just don't know. But there's some reason to believe that the first story might have been a very large communal recitation sort of thing. You could read here, this is the beginning of the ancient word here in this place called Quiche. And here we take up the demonstration, revelation, and account of how things were put in shadow and brought to light by. And here you get a poem. Maybe this was sung. Maybe in a low voice throughout the stadium. I don't know. Use your imagination. But it's hard to believe that this would have been done by one person. This probably would have been a communal event where hundreds, maybe even thousands of people recited this, the way a congregation today might recite a prayer or might sing a hymn or something like that. The maker, modeler, named bearer, begetter, Hunahpu possum, Hunahpu coyote, great white peccary, sovereign plumed serpent, heart of the lake, heart of the sea, plate shaper, bowl shaper as they are called, also named, also described as the midwife, matchmaker, and so on and so forth. In other words, all the names of God, all the names of the Creator, sort of a listing it all out. There is the original book in ancient writing, but the one who reads it and assesses it has a hidden identity. Here the monk is actually talking about himself, whoever this Quiche monk probably was. It takes a long performance and account to complete the lighting of all the sky earth. So we're sort of being narrated a little bit on top of this, and some commentary is coming probably from that very, very ancient first Quiche monk. Near the bottom of that page 3080, now it still ripples, now it still murmurs, ripples, it still sighs, still hums, and it is empty under the sky. Here follow the first words, the first eloquence. There is not yet one person, one animal, bird, fish, crab, tree, rock, hollow, canyon, meadow, forest. Only the sky alone is there. The face of the earth is not clear. This is such a beautiful thing. It's hard to believe that some sort of dance or singing or musical performance didn't accompany this. Do you see that? It just seems to be made for that. The next page, thus the name plumed serpent. They are great knowers, great thinkers in their very being. And then the earth arose because of them. It was simply their word that brought it forth. From the forming of the earth, they said, earth. It arose suddenly, just like a cloud, like a mist. And again, we see in this creation story the idea that creation is spoken into existence. Where have you seen that before? So many times it's spoken into existence, right? And language and creation being so closely linked in the human consciousness that we create through language and we describe creation with language. And we seem to want to see that as the creative act itself. It's fascinating stuff here. Anyway, it goes on for quite a bit, and then we get our first little story here that our editor gives us, or this isn't the next story in the sequence, but it's a little bit later story. The story of the twins, Hunahpu and Spelunky is how you pronounce those, Hunahpu and Spelunky, who are twin gods, and they are tricksters. They like to play tricks on people. Seen that before? Yeah. And so they approach Seven Macaw. Now, I'm going to count on you guys to have already read this because I'm not going to go through every aspect of it. But look at all the different sort of things, the elements in here that make it an appealing story both for children and for adults. And that's a picture down in the bottom right of Hunahpu and Spelunky, the twins, the gods that are twins. Now, not all of this stuff is chronological or sequential. The Popol Vuh has a tendency to kind of pop around from story to story to story, right? So you're going to hear this story, and then there's another story that sort of comes before it, and another one comes after it, and so it's not. Don't think in terms of the same sort of time frames that Western narratives have of absolute fidelity to chronology there. But what we have here is 7 macaw, and we have Hunahpu and Spelunky and the grandparents and all that kind of great white peccary and so on. Now, here's a big mystery. We do not know why some of these characters are given number names. We do know how important numbers are to the Mayan civilization. Numbers were incredibly important. They had very, very accurate calendars. Disregard all the nonsense over the 2012 calendar. The Mayan calendar was exceedingly accurate. These people had very, very high level, sophisticated mathematics, and their architecture couldn't have existed were it not for that sophisticated grasp of mathematics. Okay. And so numbers were incredibly important, and it's hard to believe also that the numbers didn't have some sort of significance. We do know this, that it doesn't mean generations. So when we say 7 macaw, it doesn't mean that his father was 6 macaw and his grandfather was 5. There seems to be no correlation between generations and numerology in the Mayan system. Instead, what may be suggested through the numbering is a sort of series of personality types, like Joe's a 7, his sister's a 5, and that doesn't mean their attractiveness, by the way. It just means what kind of person they are, or what kind of, or it could have been something that was associated with sort of an astrological calendar. Maybe it was a month in which they were born. A lot of different competing theories, but one thing's for sure: it's not generational. It has some significance. We just don't know what it is. Okay, 1 in 7 Hunahpu, for example. They seem to be contemporaries. They don't seem to be, one doesn't seem to be the descendant of another. And so there's something there, we just don't know what it is. But with this story, of course, it's a story about vanity, the macaw. And if you've never seen a macaw, it's a beautiful colored tropical bird. Looks kind of like a parrot, with a beautiful beak and everything. But in this story, this particular bird had even flashier, gaudier teeth. It was one of the earliest sort of grills. Is that the word they use today? I think in thug culture, one's grill, of precious gems and stones and whatnot. It's a story of how the twins trick him and replace his teeth with corn and such, and they enlist the help of their grandparents and so on. So it is an interesting story. It's a sort of a what happened and how did the macaw lose his teeth and all of that sort of thing story. But it's also a story that shows you that the gods were sort of practical jokers and this sort of thing. Kind of a violent story too. If you take a look at it, it's hardly sort of softball sort of things. His face fell at once. He no longer looked like a lord. The last of his teeth came out. The jewels that had stood out blew from his mouth. His greatness left him. And when 7 macaw died, Hunahpu got back his arm. Okay? Funny thing, body parts fall off and get stuck back on in pre-human civilization quite a bit. Now the second story is just as important. It's this victory over the underworld story where 1 in 7 Hunahpu go underground and are tested. And again, we have an underworld testing thing. Where have you seen that before? Well, you've seen it in Gilgamesh, and you've seen it in the Aeneid, and you've seen it everywhere. That these gods have to go into the underworld, and they have to do what is essentially asked of them that is impossible, right? So you got to keep a cigar lit, and it can't burn out and it can't burn up, okay? And all of these sorts of things. It's an impossible test, just like Gilgamesh was faced with an impossible test. And in this case, of course, they don't succeed. They don't succeed. Xibalba is sort of the underworld. It's kind of like the Hades of the Mayan universe here, and no one is to pick the fruit, etc. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit ahead. Then 1 in 7 Hunahpu were amazed at the fruit of the tree. I'm still ahead of myself. Let's see. Here you will hide your faces. You are to be sacrificed, said 1 and 7, death, speaking to 1 and 7, Hunahpu, right? So they failed the test. They have to be sacrificed. They were buried at the place of the ball game sacrifice, as it is called. Now, by the way, the ball game sacrifice was a huge sporting event with the Mayans. They played it in big outdoor open-air stadiums, and it was kind of a cross between soccer and lacrosse with a really, really big ball. And tradition has it that the ball was basically a head of the enemy that had been chopped off and wrapped up in cloth. And that was used to kick it down back and forth. By the way, the losing team was sacrificed, as in killed, which gave you great incentive to win, I would think. And so this is a pretty big blood sport. Put his head on the fork of the tree that stands by the road, said 1 and 7, death. And when his head was put on the fork of the tree, okay, this is the head of 1 Hunahpu, it bore fruit. And this is the calabash tree, as we call it today, the skull of 1 Hunahpu. Now here over on the slide is a calabash tree, and it looks like big green, I guess, heads hanging down, doesn't it? That's a calabash tree, and it's a kind of a gourd, and you would make things out of it. You could make everything from bowls to jugs to whatever you want to out of it, and it'd dry out and such. But now it weaves itself into a second tale, which is kind of fascinating too. And this is the story of a maiden, the daughter of a lord named Blood Gatherer, right? So this is Blood Maiden. And she comes across the tree that has the head of 1 Hunahpu in it as a calabash. It's a very strange thing. Again, a tree, experiential, knowledge. Where have we seen this before? Lots of places, but particularly Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, etc. This notion that she's going to go do something she's not supposed to do with fruit from a tree that she's not supposed to mess with. Okay, and again, there seems to be, use your imagination, some sort of fertility thing going on here. Okay, what? Well, what's the fruit of this tree? Shouldn't this tree bear something sweet? They shouldn't die. They shouldn't be wasted. Should I pick one? Said the maiden. And the bone in the tree, right? There's a bone that's sticking out of a tree. Okay, hello Freudians, have fun. It was here in the fork of the tree. Why do you want a mere bone? A round thing in the branches of a tree, said the head of 1 Hunahpu when it spoke to the maiden. You don't want it, she was told. I do want it, said the maiden. Very well, stretch out your hand right here so I can see it, said the bone. Yes, said the maiden. She stretched out her right hand up there in front of the bone, and then the bone spit out its saliva, which landed squarely in the hand of the maiden. And guess what? She becomes pregnant. You do the math. I mean, you're all big boys and girls, and so you know what's going on here. But it's some sort of an explanation that deals with tree, fruit, maiden, right? Young woman, who is disobedient or is so curious or wants something she is not supposed to have, the result of which is essentially impregnation and childbirth. This is a really, really fascinating thing. I mean, call it a coincidence if you wish, but it certainly seems to be have a lot of parallels to other stories we've read. And so it's just the same with the head of a great lord. After that, his son is like his saliva, his spittle, and his being, whether it be the son of the Lord or the son of a craftsman, an orator. The father does not disappear, but goes on being fulfilled. Neither dim nor destroyed is the face of a lord, a warrior, craftsman, or orator. She had been given many instructions, but right away something was generated in her belly from the saliva alone, and this was the generation of Hunahpu and Spelunky. You see, this story actually should have preceded chronologically the previous one, but it comes later, so it kind of has some backtracking involved here. So this is the story of how Hunahpu and Spelunky actually came about. Well, they came about after 1 and 7 Hunahpu had gone through the Xibalba trial and lost, and 1 Hunahpu was made into the calabash tree. So Hunahpu and Spelunky, the twins, are actually descended from, indirectly, 1 Hunahpu, and so it's an interesting. It's a 1 and 7 Hunahpu. So it's an interesting kind of story, but it's 2 stories woven into one, and it has to do with it gives us a little side lecture about, well, this is where children come from, and this is why children look like and act like and their parents, and the parents live on through their children as a result of that. So some interesting story. The full Popol Vuh is made of just dozens and dozens and dozens of stories like this. Fairly brief, sometimes woven together, sometimes standalone. Almost always, though, acted out, performed, we think.